Assalamu alaikum, welcome to Dialogue. I'm Taimur Shamil. Yesterday on Friday, India and Russia signed a deal of S-400 missile system worth $5 billion. And this certainly is a big amount, also a very important defense pact between India and Russia. But this is not something new. India and Russia have been together and they have been collaborating for several decades. India and Russia relations have been very strong since 1953 after Stalin, and both countries have been working closely on different aspects, on trade for that matter, on arms import as well. And we also know that India is the biggest arms importer at the moment in the world, and India is also upgrading its military hardware worth $100 billion. India has been collaborating with the United States. India has been collaborating with China for that matter. This recent deal of S-400 missile system worth $5 billion is certainly perhaps is going to ache United States for that matter, China, and also this is very strategically important for Pakistan. How should Pakistan respond to the Indian designs and the Indian military upgrading system? As I told you earlier, the $5 billion deal with the Russians. At the moment, Russia is the bigger arms exporter to India, and India and Russia have been working closely on arms deal. The second biggest arms dealer with India is the United States for that matter. Many experts are of the view that China and United States have been skeptic about India's closeness with Russia. But as I said earlier, this is not something new. A few weeks back, 2+2 meeting was going on between United States and India. The foreign ministers of both countries, India and United States, and the defense ministers were meeting in New Delhi, and they also signed an agreement that was the communication compatibility and security agreement, in which United States and India would also be working closely on intelligence sharing and also on software and hardware development. So while these things are going on, while India is developing its close relations with Russia, also with China, United States as well, and its 36 Rafale fighter jets with France, what are the policy options for Pakistan? How should Pakistan look at the Indians' arm deals with several states, and specifically with Russia? Because recently we have also seen that Russia and Pakistan have also been collaborating closely. Military drills of the Russian troops were carried out in Pakistan, and this was perhaps the first time. Russian generals, top military generals, have been visiting Pakistan. They have been visiting the northern areas of Pakistan and also the Pakistani border with Afghanistan. They were shown the security situation over there, and Russia has been closely collaborating with Pakistan. This was also something a little disturbing for India at one point, and India also raised questions to the Putin administration about this. We are going to discuss about all this: Indian military hardware, Indian deals with arms deal with Russia, and policy options for Pakistan, foreign policy options and strategic options for Pakistan. And for this, we have our special guest today in the studios. Our first guest is Ambassador Shahid Kiyani, renowned senior diplomat and an expert on Pakistan's relations with Russia and also Pakistan's foreign policy. Sir, welcome to the show. Our second guest is Air Vice Marshal Ikram Bhatti, renowned senior defense analyst. Sir, welcome to the show. Ambassador Kiyani, starting with this recent deal of $5 billion, the S-400 missile system. This is certainly not the first time, and that India and Russia are collaborating. But the way India is keeping its closeness with almost all the countries, interestingly, big powers, China, United States, and Russia. How do you see Indian approach toward these countries, and what are the implications for Pakistan?
We should not be surprised at the way at this very important, significant agreement which has been signed between India and Russia. Russia and previously the Soviet Union, the relationship between India and Soviet Union were laid somewhere right at the outset of the partition. Even earlier, the founders of India, like Jawaharlal Nehru, had a left-leaning approach, and he had developed this relationship with then Soviet Union, and that relationship during the Cold War war developed in quite rapidly,
Right.
even though rapidly, and it did not in any manner, deflect the attention of the Western countries, which did not see, eye to eye with India on the relationship with the communist countries. And one could see during the 62, I'm just coming, just in the 62 war between India and China, the Americans supported supported India. And then the Indian leadership continued to develop relations with Soviet Union and its successor state now Russia. Now what has happened is that Russians are very clever. They understand that they cannot allow India to go into the lap of the United States. So this agreement, and it suits both the countries. Another very important thing is, India is under, Russia is under sanctions of the United States, but it looks like there is a wink from the United States that yes, India can go ahead and buy this lethal weapons from the weaponry from Russia. And I've seen that earlier even the American defense minister was asked, and he said that India is a strategic partner and we cannot penalize a strategic partner, but that we can penalize the seller and not the buyer. State Department has said the same. So there are double, my
special
apologies.
favor for India.
Yes, special favor. I'm looking at it. There are lessons for us, for Pakistan. Lessons is that we should continue to develop relations with both the big powers, and we should not just restrict our options. And my own thing is that we need to look at two sovereign countries developing relations with each other. Our criticism should not be on any country. We should learn lessons and start continue to develop our relations as we have been doing the last 1 decade with Russia, so that we are also in a position to get the same advantage as India does.
Right. Air Vice Marshal Bhatti talking about India and Russia, this S-400 system deal with Russia. By the way, this is going to be delivered to India in 2020, and that is expected. But at the same time, India has also signed a very important agreement with the United States a few weeks back, and that was Communication Compatibility and Security Agreement that also gives India special access to the information that the United States already has about, for that matter, on regarding land and sea and airspace. So India's relations with Russia and also its growing compatibility, let's say, or its expenditure on the arms race, how do you see that?
Well, as we just discussed, India has been in the Russian or the Soviet camp for a very long time. And over the last few years, with the rise of China, and India realized that it is now becoming more relevant to the US. So it started or is thought of using the American card as well. And we can see that the Indians have a lot of interest in America. There is a trade surplus of $25 billion in favor of India with the US. And there's a very large number of Indian expats who work in USA. There is, of course, their position over there enables the Indian government to have an access to American think tanks and to be able to influence the policy making process in the US. So with all this in the background, we see that the Indians have a substantial interest in the US, so that they like to develop those relationships. And with the rise of China, the Americans are also interested in India to use this against China to curb the rise or to impede it or slow it down. So there is commonality of interests.
Right.
They are both benefiting from this relationship. And one evidence of this is that when the Americans, of course, give a special favor is the agreement that the act that the Americans have is the countering American adversaries through sanctions act. The adversaries are Russia, Iran, and North Korea. and we see that India is one of the major buyers of Iranian oil, despite that. And now Indians have decided to buy the Russian latest, the biggest weapon system that the Russians have to offer to the world. And the Americans are willing to let it happen. So it's purely an interest-based relationship. And we see that both are benefiting. The Indians are willing to play along with the Americans vis-a-vis their positioning against China and get benefited in the bargain.
And now the most important question to you, strategically, should Pakistan be concerned about S-400 system, this deal between Russia and India?
Well, you see, S-400 is purely a defensive system. It's an air defense system, state of the art, very potent, latest, most lethal, most effective. Pakistan has no offensive designs against India. We do not intend to invade or capture India. Hence, if Indians improve their defensive capability, they would want to improve it or strengthen it against adversary from whom they fear an aggression, an invasion. Pakistan is neither an aggressor nor an invader as far as India is concerned. So, with that in mind, I don't think Pakistan should be worried or concerned about a defensive equipment which Indians have acquired.
So you don't think that this system perhaps would be directed towards Pakistan? How is India looking at, let's say, with this system towards Pakistan? Is it directed towards Pakistan?
You see, as I said, it's a defensive system.
Right. And that can be for any, let's say, country?
It is to defend India against an attack. I mean, attack of surface-to-surface ballistic missiles, an attack of drones, or an attack of cruise missiles, or an attack of strike aircraft. Is Pakistan intending to do that to India? No. So if that be the case, should we be concerned?
But there are bigger powers as well in the region.
Well, yes, against whom the system has been acquired, and that's China.
Yeah.
That's China, because they already had a war. While they may be economically cooperating a lot, there is a very big bilateral trade that is going on, $70+ billion. That's a very good relationship, which is flourishing. But the fact remains that they are both rising powers, and there is every possibility between two rising powers to get into competition, and then to belligerence, and then to eventually into war. So the Indians are preparing themselves. Or to deter China. China has already acquired the same system.
From Russia.
From Russia.
Yeah. And they also face sanctions from United States.
Yes.
And India, Mr. Kiyani, has asked for a special waiver from United States regarding this S-400 system. United States and India's relations in the wake of what is happening in the region, India is getting closer to Russia. Do you think that this would also be alarming for United States, or they are looking at it, they can predict it, what is happening in the region?
This deal, which was signed just a few days back, has been in the knowledge of the United States. They have discussed it. You see, a superpower, we cannot be naive and say that, it suddenly happened. No, this was being discussed for the last many years between India and Russia. And it was in the knowledge of the United States.
And Indian Defense Minister visited
Absolutely,
Washington,
absolutely.
and she talked about this.
They talked about it. And you could see during the visit of the Defense Secretary Mattis, and they said that, you see, if they go, meaning they never wanted it, but they said, okay, if it goes along, we will not, penalize a partner which is so important to them. They are building up India against China, which I would say, continue to say, it would not work. But the thing is, if a superpower commits to such an extent, they are naturally going to ignore these things. You believe it or not? And as the Marshal Saab was saying, that this is a defensive equipment. So for a defensive equipment, I think the United States would like to ignore. But for us, I just say, apart from the defense thing, during the visit, other agreements were also signed, which is on space and others. What lessons for us, I just tell you is, as I'm very happy that you have a new government now which believes in a knowledge-based society, which is not Pakistan, not as yet. India is on its way. So we should try to read and understand our adversary. Where is it heading for? You understand? India is building its, a knowledge-based society, trying to, the capacity building of its institutions. It has gone far ahead as far as space technology is concerned. We are nowhere. We are just trying to buy from others. I think we need to understand. And the other thing is,
by the way, Pakistan and China have been collaborating.
we are, but we started off very late. The other thing is trade. Now, what is, sir, nowadays in this modern age, what is the glue which keeps the countries together? National interest, and national interest, in my opinion, come down to economics.
Economy, right.
India and Russia are important trading partners. So is India and China important trading partners. So we need to bring more important. Now, there are some positive development which has taken place. Pakistan and Russia signed last year an agreement of a gas pipeline from I think from Gwadar to Lahore. Now we are also discussing with them another interstate gas pipeline, and for this it's a $10 billion project. For a survey is being taken by by Russia. So these are important. Then we are members of SCO. We have conducted, as you said, defense exercises. So we are, and as you had correctly mentioned, that Russia is building relations with Pakistan. These are relationships of trust. These are important, building blocks.
Right.
So we are in the right direction. We should continue. We should not criticize Russia for this agreement. These are two sovereign countries which have signed these agreements. We should try to build this in a manner that, as I said earlier, that if a time comes and we are able to buy even sophisticated military equipment from Russia, we should do it, because we should not, undermine a country with which we are developing relations.
Right. But Evas Marshal Bhatti, Russia has been backing India very, I would say, assertively. They have been backing India for the permanent seat at United Nations Security Council. There are reports that Russia also tried its best that India should become a member of Shanghai Cooperation Organization, for that matter. Now this arms deal. So Russia has been backing India very assertively, and do you think that this would be at the cost of Russia's relations with Pakistan? Because what we saw recently, that they have been, Russia and Pakistan have been moving close and they have been improving ties. Would it be at the cost of Pakistan?
No, I think as we have just discussed, the Soviet Union, or the erstwhile Soviet Union, and India have been very close to each other ever since the independence or the partition of subcontinent. And we found that in 1971 they had entered into a special friendship agreement, and thereafter Russia has remained the biggest arms supplier to India. And they have been supporting them in the UN Security Council whenever some important resolutions came up vis-a-vis Kashmir. And it is only now that Pakistan has also started to befriend Russia. I mean, if you go back to 1960, when we allowed the Americans to operate the U-2 from here, and then of course we supported the Americans in the war against Soviet Union in Afghanistan. And of course that continued until, of course, we find that there was increasing warmth between India and America, and that is where Pakistan found an opportunity that while the Americans were becoming lukewarm to us and they're becoming warm to the Indians, that was an opportunity for Pakistan to develop a relationship with Russia. Right. And I think that has been done very successfully over the last few years. Right. And ever since it has been growing. And now even we have offers of military hardware from Russia. I mean, our militaries are training together. They are getting education together. So I think this is now the time for Pakistan to develop more options in its relationship within the region and over the globe. And I think we are on a very correct track, and we need to reduce our dependence on the Americans and have more relationships or partnerships within the region. And we are now, in the SCO with the Russians, the Chinese and the Indians. I think that is a very healthy development for Pakistan, and I think it's going to bring not only Russia and Pakistan together, but it's going to strengthen Pakistan's relations with China. And I think it also gives a very, very useful, very effective opportunity for India and Pakistan to solve their differences on the platform of SCO, not at the UN, but I think over here, because here we have regional countries who can feel the need far more than it is going to be felt at the UN.
Right.
That these two countries need to be friendly. So I think our relationship with Russia is now gaining ground, gaining traction, gaining strength, and it is going to be more useful for the two countries and for the region.
For the region. We're going to take a break over here, and after the break we'll continue our discussion on India has signed deal worth $5 billion deal of S-400 system with Russia. Should Pakistan be concerned about this deal? Because India is obsessed with upgrading its military hardware, and since we already know that the kind of government is ruling in India, BJP backed by RSS, there is this extremism and terrorism as well going on inside India, and Pakistan certainly is concerned about all these things, because we also saw recently how India has been reacting to the regional developments. India has not been welcoming the talks with Pakistan, though Pakistan took an initiative that both countries, India and Pakistan, should talk, but India didn't do that. On the sidelines of UNGA, Sushma Swaraj, India's external affairs minister, she walked out of the SAARC meeting that was going on. So India's designs, what are the Indian designs in the region? This S-400 system, the Indian arrogance, what are the policy options for Pakistan? And how should Pakistan respond to the developments going on in the region, and specifically in India? We're going to talk about this. Our experts have something very interesting to discuss about this whole thing, about Pakistan's policy and Pakistan's policy options, foreign policy options regarding this whole scenario. After this break, stay with us. Welcome back. We are discussing the recent deal that was signed between India and Russia, the S-400 system deal that worth $500 billion, and the implications for Pakistan and for the region. Ambassador Kiyani, talking about this deal, in 2017, President Putin, he met Indian journalist, and during an interview, when he was asked about Pakistan and interestingly about Kashmir, what Russia thinks, Moscow thinks at the moment, what President Putin thinks about Pakistan and Russia. When he talked about Kashmir, President Putin refused to talk about Kashmir because he knows obviously the ground realities and the Indian propaganda as well regarding Kashmir. And he also said that I believe Pakistan is taking immense steps to stabilize the situation in the country, while he was talking about Pakistan's counter-terrorism efforts and all that. What does this statement tells us about Moscow's approach towards Islamabad and how Russia is looking at Pakistan?
Let me say to you, sir, since the arrival of Modi as the Prime Minister, India has become very arrogant. more arrogant than it should be. Okay, we understand India is a very big country, large country, more resources, you see, and an emerging economy, but it's become more arrogant. And at times, this arrogance doesn't work with certain world leaders. Putin is a man who has brought back, you must have heard, after the demise of the Soviet Union, the successor Russian state has just gone down. You could see, many warships, sunk in the water, they could see. Now, Russian is an emerging world. It's an important world. It has has the rightful place in global politics. So Putin is a man who's done it, and Putin understands that Pakistan is a regional country, a country which is as a tyranny of geography. It's an important country. Therefore, it does not want to foreclose all options. That is a very wise thing for him to not talk about Kashmir, because according to him, as I said silently, it is an issue between Pakistan and India, and it's a principled stand. So he did the right thing, and that is the reason that you see a positive development in the bilateral relation between Pakistan and Russia. They move in the right direction. He doesn't want any hiccups. We are just waiting for now. A day will come when President Putin will visit Pakistan. And how it will happen, I've been talking to people here. When we have certain things which has reached its fruition, like trade between Pakistan and Russia visibly moves. There are other agreements between Pakistan and Russia which are there for him to come and sign. He just cannot come and visit us there. Like, for example, as I said, the gas, Russia has been a very important partner of Pakistan in oil and gas exploration. So in trade, economics, and even defense, if we have certain things to buy or to sell, I think the Russian president will be here. I just want to say one thing, sir, more. I think now is a time that Prime Minister Imran Khan, who has been an excellent, outstanding cricket captain, should now, I think, like a good captain, leave the players, like his own ministers, to look after the micromanaging. He should do now the macro management. There are naturally domestic issues take precedence. There are very serious issues going on. But sir, now is the time, I've been saying around this forum, that Prime Minister Imran Khan should visit his regional countries, including Russia, talk to the leaders, listen to their concerns, and share our concerns, trying to find out what are the common grounds. Because the ministers, if he sends the ministers, cannot replicate the leader. Naturally speaking, this new government has no experience of statecraft, but that does not stop them from visiting and listening to other leaders, as they said, what ails them and what is the problem. And believe it or not, he will come back a more wiser person, and his interlocutors will be more wise.
And certainly you said about the experience, we said they might not be having the experience, but they're
good listeners.
They have the potential and capability to do all these things, certainly. There was Marshal Bhatti talking about Pakistan and Pakistan's options regarding Russia, for that matter. Before the show, we were discussing about this whole thing, and you talked about Pakistan's unexploitable position. Would you elaborate that? Because what are the options now for Pakistan? We see India having deal with Russia, with China for that matter, at United Nations Security Council, and all the developments going on. What are the options for Pakistan now?
You see, at this moment, Pakistan's relevance is diminished. Pakistan's voice is not heard, and its interests are ignored or not honored or entertained. This essentially is because of Pakistan's vulnerabilities, and it is also essentially because Pakistan is exploitable. And Pakistan remains vulnerable and exploitable because of two counts. Firstly, it is politically unstable. Secondly, it is economically weak. Unfortunately, our governments, when they come into power, their major focus or most of the attention and effort is directed at keeping themselves in position, in chair, in office.
Yes.
And they are not able to do anything for nation building, for in foreign affairs and developing the image of Pakistan or rectifying it or bringing the actual face of Pakistan to the world. Hence, Pakistan is not seen, it's not heard at international forum. So I think people who have governed this country, they've had their turn, they've had their share. Now they should let the next government govern in peace, with full attention, with full focus, so that the country can benefit, the country can improve, the nation can help, can improve. So if that be the case, you see, unfortunately today even our friends, even our brothers exploit us. What to talk of our enemies? So, and this is just because, as I said, we are vulnerable and we are exploitable. So we need to, we keep on saying this, that we need to put our house in order. That is what is putting the house in order. That we have to be more politically stable, we have to be more economically strong. And then I think everything will start to fall in place. Countries would like to, will definitely have interests in you. They will definitely respond to your needs. They will have their own initiatives towards you. Right. And you can benefit from the rest of the world. You will be seen, you will be heard, and you will be respected. Unfortunately, that is not happening today. Absolutely. But you still remain relevant. You have a position and you are relevant, but that relevance can only be shared, it can only be exploited, or it can only be used if you can, pay attention to it, you can focus on it, and you can take it to the world. But unfortunately, if you remain busy with your own self and trying to, keep, getting your feet stronger, so that you remain in power, then you're not able to do your primary work. So I think that is what we need to do. I mean, we need to start to focus on our political stability and economic strength. And if we are able to do that, I think everything will start to fall in place.
And this is very important, Ambassador Kiyani, when we talk about foreign policy and Pakistan's relations with the international community, working on governance and economy is, I think, the first and foremost thing. Absolutely. And if, let's say, the way Air Vice Marshal is saying, that we need to work on ourselves and improve our economy and governance, only then we can have that kind of say that we want to have, or that we think we need to have. What do you think about this?
You see, let's try to work from a positive, basis. The third transition to democracy has taken place, because now there will be less talk of a dysfunctional state as far as Pakistan is concerned. Earlier, they were talking about a dysfunctional state where the institutions are weak, where the leaders' hands are corrupt, where even the second and third tier of bureaucracy and politicians, our hands are tainted. Now you have, meaning, a very positive development. A third transition is taking place. Institutions, democratic institutions, which are very crucial for a federation like Pakistan, are strengthening. Now there is zero tolerance for corruption. People at the helm of the affair who had held offices are being taken into account. So these are good things. We should now, this should be our mantra, this should be our narrative. Now building on this narrative, we cannot be on crutches, reaching out to our friends, please help us out. After every few years we go to them and ask them that please help us out. I think there is a fatigue amongst our friends, as my colleague was saying. We need to put our house in order. Institutions, these are issues of governance. Are our financial institutions working fine? People who take loan, are they returning it? And who are going scot-free? Those who are in important positions. Now, like tax base, that needs to be enlarged, right, and visibly enlarged. Let those who have the resources pay the right taxes. Once you do that, and then there should be zero, as I said to you, zero tolerance for corruption, and it should be seen that even people sitting in the cabinet now, Mr. Imran Khan should be able to say that there is tolerance, and those who commit these heinous crimes would be taken to task. Once this message goes to the international financial institutions and to the banking sector abroad, they're willing to help and assist you, because you are putting, as the Marshal Saab was saying, your house in order. Problem is, we are in a denial mode. We keep on blaming outside forces, or they are doing this thing. Well, I'll just give you one example. All our defense installations were attacked by, naturally speaking, by forces outside the country, but they were our own people who attacked us, because it's always an inside job. So we should try to look inside ourselves. As I said, a lot of soul searching should be done before we can accuse others. Once we, sir, start focusing inside, but keeping a vigilant eye outside, only that will work. And then, sir, we should, as I said in the end, sir, let us stop, sir, begging others to help us. We can help ourselves.
Right. Abbas Marshal Bhatti, Pakistan has excellent relations with China, but at the same time, Pakistan also needs to explore its relations with other countries in the region, Iran, Afghanistan, Russia for that matter. How do you see and how do you think that we can explore more friends in the region and in the world? We certainly need to have more strategic friends.
Certainly. Basically, you see, it is the commonality of interests which develops into friendship and, of course, economic relationship, trade. We, of course, with India, we have been together for centuries. We have people who are related to each other. There's a lot of similarity, while there are a lot of dissimilarities. But, of course, I hope that in due course of time, the Indians will join the CPAC, and hopefully there will be economic interdependence. They will have a passage through Pakistan into Central Asia, through Afghanistan, and there will be greater dependence of the two countries on each other. We have this Turkmenistan, Pakistan, India pipeline also in the pipeline. So with those projects in the offing, there is going to be interdependence and hence good relationship. Similarly, Afghanistan is a neighboring country. We have a lot of cultural relationships and of course a lot of commonality. We just have to remove the misgivings and mistrust, and things can be noble. Same is the case with Iran. There's a lot of potential between the two countries, a lot of trade potential, and if the Indians can have a waiver from the Americans and they can be the biggest buyer of Iranian oil, why can't we have a pipeline from Iran? So Pakistan should be able to work that out with the Americans.
Because India is getting a special waiver from the United States and Pakistan might not be getting a special
waiver. Well,
waiver
Pakistan has had a much better, much bigger, much closer, much stronger relationship with the Americans vis-a-vis the Indians. So with that in the background, I think Pakistan should be able to maneuver that, should be able to work that, work that out with the Americans and develop that relationship with Iran, and maybe Pakistan could one day sort out the differences between the two countries.
And Pakistan should get the best deal with the United States and other countries in the region.
Certainly.
Right.
So I think there is a lot of potential for Pakistan to work around in the neighborhood and develop good relationship and bring this peace to this region, which is for everybody's good.
And that is what Pakistan is working on. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us. Mr. Kiyani, pleasure having you on the show. Thank you for your time. Vice Marshal Bhatti, thank you for your time. Pleasure having you on the show. India and Russia signed an agreement, primarily a defense system of S-400. This is, according to our experts in the studios, Pakistan should be realistic about it. There are two sovereign countries, India and Russia, and certainly Pakistan is not looking at it as if this system is directed towards Pakistan. As Vice Marshal Bhatti said, that Pakistan doesn't have any plan of invading India or attacking India, certainly. Therefore, this S-400 system shouldn't be thought about directed towards Pakistan. What Pakistan needs to work on is, as Mr. Kiyani was saying, we need to strengthen our own selves, strengthen our institutions, and focus on governance and economy. Only then can Pakistan be unexploitable, and Pakistan should work on its inner strength. That is the most important thing at the moment for Pakistan. At the same time, we need to work on other options in the region for Pakistan, security options, strategic options, and also trade options for Pakistan. Thank you for watching today's program. See you next time. Khuda Hafiz.